Hello, everyone, and welcome to today's webinar, Kickstarting Your Customer-Centric Culture. While everyone's joining, it's great to see that. I'm just going to talk for a little bit of the housekeeping and intro this webinar before passing over to Nicholas to lead the discussion today. We've got a really great panel lined up, and I'm really excited for some of the insights they're going to be sharing. First up on that panel is, I guess one of our close friends here from Reuters Events. It's Doug Chalk, Senior Director of Global Premier Legal Support at Thomson Reuters. Doug has over 35 years experience leading service teams here at Thomson Reuters. And we're really excited to have his wealth of expertise on the panel today. And Doug is eager to jump into this webinar and talk about the Rep Experience program that we're running at the moment across the US, UK, Canada, and the Philippines. Next up is someone who you've probably seen speak at some of our events before, and we're always happy to have him sharing his insights. It's Lance Grunner, EVP in Global Customer Care at MasterCard. Lance and MasterCard, we said, have spoken at lots of different of our events, but we're really eager to find out what's new on their agenda, what they're planning for 2021 and beyond. And yeah, I'm excited to hear about some of the strides he's making there. Next up, we have Erin Feaster, Vice President of Organizational Effectiveness at Nationwide, one of the largest insurance and financial services companies in the world, and customer centricity is really at the heart of their organizational success. So yeah, really grateful for Erin for joining us today, and excited to hear about some of the work they're doing there at Nationwide. Rounding out today's panel is Jennifer Quinlan, Managing Partner of Enterprise Strategy and Interactive Experiences for the Americas at today's sponsor, IBM. We're really excited to be partnering with IBM today on this webinar. They don't really need an introduction. They're a global leader in business transformation, and they've used their technology services to support clients for over 170 years. And yeah, huge global presence. So we're really excited to hear from them today. Finally, I'd like to introduce Nicholas Seisler, who's going to be our moderator for today. Again, probably needs no introduction. You've seen him run a lot of these webinars for us, and he always does a great job of keeping the conversation on track. Nicholas, or Z as we call him, is the former director of CX at HP and works with a number of companies to support their customer experience strategy. Before we kick things off, a few last bits of housekeeping. We've got over 750 of you registered for today's webinar, and it's great to see so many of you joining live as well. Looking through the list, there's people from Starbucks, Verizon, Bank of America, my personal favorite, Lego, lots of exciting brands. So we want to lean on your expertise as well. So please do use the chat function to ask any questions. There's the Q&A tool as well at the bottom of the screen through Zoom. So do send your questions in, and we'll be sure to forward them on to Nicholas to bring in today's discussion. Finally, just wanted to let you know that today's discussion is being recorded. So if you miss anything or just want to recap for your notes, we will be sending out that discussion for you to catch up with. That's it for me. Thanks again for joining. I'm just going to hand over to Nicholas now to kick off today's panel. Nicholas, over to you.
Thanks, Aaron. It's good to be back. Good to kick off the new year with this great panel. Really honored to be here today with Doug, Aaron, Jen, and Lance. We've got a lot of great material, a lot of great questions set up already. But as you had mentioned, Aaron, I encourage everybody who's attending today to go ahead and hit that Q&A box and send in the questions that you have, because that's really the great part about these, is that interaction between the folks who are attending, who have awesome questions to ask of our panelists. But while we wait for those to come in, I've got a couple, and I want to kick it off with Lance. Lance, you and I spoke last week, and one of the things that we noticed and that we were discussing is that all of last year, that year whose name shall not be spoken, people were talking about how important CX is to brand awareness and how brands are interacting with their customers. CX, customer experience, that was it. That was the big thing. The brands that are going to survive what's going on these days are going to be the ones who really internalize and take seriously CX. But I think you and I have both been through this sort of thing before. And so the question, I think, is out there. It's kind of hanging over. And I want to hear what you have to say and what the other panelists have to say. Is CX really here to stay? Or is it something you think that is a bit of a fad because of what's going on and what has been happening recently? I'd like to hear your thoughts, and I want to kind of kick it around the table and hear what Doug and Aaron and Jen have to say as well. But Lance, why don't you go ahead and start us off?
Z, the last part is it a fad? I'm hearing that more and more from people that will call me and say, do we think it's really a fad? Do you think it's really a fad? This is what some of my leadership is saying. And last year, as you know, was crazy for everybody. And it accelerated a lot of the activity around CX. Everything that was the way we connected with our customers. That is the way we tried to, survive, was realizing, we've got to have that. But like you said, CX has been around for years. It may have been under another name, whether you wanted to do TQM throughout the years. It has an evolution. But concern me is it here to stay? Yes, it is here to stay. Now, it may change its moniker, but the focus on the customer experience will never go out. And it is the way companies win. It is the way that companies win loyalty. It is the way that companies, get customers to come back, because you're going to see a big push trying to get people to come back. But I think where this is coming from is, last year we talked a lot about focus on customer experience. We talked about it. We didn't really know exactly how to do that. And what is important, that it shifted to the mainstream, the culture, the DNA of having customer at the center of everything that we do. And that's where I'm seeing companies that haven't done that are struggling with the concept and was struggling with the win going forward.
Lance, what I love about what you're saying there is that it kind of ties together one of the things about my practice and what I talk with my clients about all the time. And that is, CX isn't just something that you talk about, or that's this, ethereal thing. You actually have to do it. And one of the things that you mentioned early on there was action. The people are taking, there's activity, there are all these different things that we started doing last year, but it's that shift. And I wrote it down here. It's the shift to it getting embedded in your culture. And isn't that the key to making sure that it's something enduring? It's funny that on the one hand, it's like, you can't just talk about it. You have to do something. But then if all it is just doing something because that's activity, and
right,
it isn't based in something that's more fun. Go ahead, Lance. Yeah.
Yeah, no, you're right. I was talking with a person a couple of weeks ago that was struggling with some of the feedback getting back from her senior leadership, and was talking about exactly that. There's been a lot of activity. They're saying, well, we've had all this activity. We've done all these things. Aren't we there yet? And there is no there yet. And it's that struggle of shifting it into the culture. And that's the culture where it's the mindset of everything that we do, about how we build our products, how we build our services, how we support, how we service, all that. What is the problem we're trying to solve with our customers?
Mm-hmm.
And that's the winning game.
Yeah. And that's got to be, as you said, in the DNA. I'm going to bring Aaron in here. Aaron, at Nationwide, you're responsible for organizational effectiveness. What's your take on that, and how it's got a bridge between doing stuff, but also making it something that's kind of throughout the entire organization?
Oh, it's got to be part of the DNA for sure. And it's here to stay. I mean, I think it will become the competitive advantage for the companies that do it, and the companies that don't take care of the customer and provide the services and the products that meet the customer where they are and surprise them and delight them and provide the value that they need will not survive long term. And so that's really what we're focusing on, is not being customer focused anymore. It's being customer centric. And in my mind, that shift is huge. And so it's wrapping that culture around that experience for the associates so they can deliver on that for our customers.
Yeah. Great. Good point there. I agree. And there's that customer centric and customer focused. There's a slight nuance there, and there's a difference between that. Doug, what are your thoughts on that? And do you have something to say from the TR perspective as well?
Yeah, I do. I mean, going back to your initial question, is CX here to stay? I mean, I can look back the last 10 to 15 years in the role I've been in customer experience, and I can say that if I spoke to our customers 10 years ago, 5 years ago, if I called them up this afternoon, what would they say? Well, they would tell us that customer experience for them is the number one thing they are looking for. Our products are, frankly, where they need to be. They're solid. I'm sure all of my peers on the call here have products and services that are solid, but our customers are looking for a seamless, easy way of doing business with our organization. So is it going away? I don't think so. And I really like the conversation about being in the DNA of the organization. Actually, you've stolen some of my notes from a bit later, talking about the DNA. The only thing I would add is that when we talk about being a customer-centric culture, we really started to use different words, being customer-obsessed. That's what we're looking to be right now, just customer-obsessed.
Yeah, I'm hearing a lot of different words about how you're relating to your customer in all these responses. Jen Quinlan over at IBM, I want to ask you your thoughts, and I want to lead that into another question. But I think I'll give you the platform here to speak on that question first, and then I got a follow on for you as well.
Yeah. I love how everybody has spoken about it already, because we look at it as it's a human experience, right? So back to the DNA comment, it's a holistic effort across organizations to get it right. And so as you're thinking about the centering point and customer centricity, if you think about it from the human experience, it's not just customers, but there are employees, right? So employees are really the heartbeat of a company. And when you look to activate your customer experience, you have to think about who's doing that. It's being done through a call center, it's being done through products and services, it's being done across the enterprise. And so even extending it through to ecosystem partners are really critical, because if you think like an organization, many of the organizations we work with are really complicated, right? So we could say, you've got to have vision and technology. And a lot of companies think about it like that. I've got a vision, I need this technology to enable it. And then I'm going to run these campaigns and I'm going to tell our folks what we need to do. But it's much deeper than that. If you think about where the failure points are, we have to connect the dots between the vision, the tech, and employees, even the non-facing customer employees, because it all comes to life in the sort of the heartbeat of the organization. So we tend to look at it from that digital transformation lens of it's a human experience, and employees are enabling it, through technology through to the customer, right? And so I think that's an important centering point for many organizations to think about, and then also think about how you're connecting in your ecosystem partners, how they can help you to enable that glide path, to make sure that they're helping you to realize that vision that you have as an organization.
Yeah, that, and if I could just peel that back a little bit, Jen, with a follow on, because at IBM, a lot of the work that you're doing is helping your clients build out, what it takes to make that happen. Can you tell us a bit about how you help and how companies can most effectively define and activate that holistic user strategy? As you said, that's more than just us and the customers. There's a lot of moving parts to make that happen, right?
Yeah. So it's a great question. So we start with the North Star. So aligning your brand vision. So what is your vision, your brand vision? And then translating that also into enterprise strategies. And I say enterprise very purposefully, because when you think about enterprise, that really connects the dots across the organization. And what are the priorities from customers to employees to the ecosystem to the tech that serves it, right? So I always say that our technology enablement is in service to your customers and your employees, and making sure that we're leveraging that in a really focused way, again back to non-customer facing employees, but also when you activate, making sure that if we're connecting the dots across all those different stakeholders and those parts of the organization, including your partners and suppliers, then your partners and suppliers are in lockstep with what an organization is trying to do. So I don't think what we see very, very commonly is vision and tech and implementation, right? And then rollout, but it's never, I think it was said prior, it's not really done, it's evolution, and it's a living, breathing, and that's why I think human is a great way to describe it, because we're always evolving, because businesses are evolving. So we need to think about it from that perspective. And I do think that the corporate cultures have to support it. And that's why, we talk about change management, but we need to change how we're looking at change management, to be able to support it through the entire ecosystem of an organization.
Yeah, I think, when you talk about the expanded view of all the things that are involved and all that's entailed, you talk about relationships with your suppliers, relationship up and down your supply chain for that matter, and throughout your entire organization. I think that brings up a question that's popped up here. If you all don't mind me going off script here, an anonymous attendee has asked a question here, and before I send this around, Jen, I want to get your thoughts. I want to append it to the question I asked before, and the question is, how do we speak to assessment frameworks? So what does good look like when we're talking about that seamless service and how our customers are receiving, as you say, Jen, that human interaction, and how do you know what good looks like?
Well, I think
tricky
that's a
one.
great question. Yeah,
Yeah.
it's a great question. And there's not a one size fits all answer. And the reason, and I'm sure the other panelists would say this, there's different levels of maturity in an organization. And I think it abundantly clear in the last year that we've seen some organizations that said, yes, I'm in great shape. I have made this transformation. They've found gaps in their in how they're serving their customers and how they're engaging that they wouldn't have realized unless we were in the kind of situation that we're in. I see Lance is shaking his head. And so, I mean, it's so for us as a, I'm a consultant basically. So we work with our clients to say, like, great, you thought you were done. Again, back to its evolution, it's continuing to evolve. And let us meet you where you are, because you've got a high degree of maturity. But in some cases, in assessments, to answer that directly, we take a look at what are the priorities of the organization and where are you in that journey. And you have to also look at it from where your employees are. Is this really embedded in your culture? And how else can we help to close those gaps? I mean, I don't see many organizations today that don't have a level of digital maturity and digital transformation, especially with their customers. What I do think is important is identifying where those pain points are and how we can help to create the connective tissue between the employee experience and the customer experience as a part of that framework and roadmap.
Yeah. Yeah, I hear you. And knowing where you are makes it easier probably, Jen, to take that deliberate approach to it too, right? So you're not just like, oh, well, we're just going to pick some numbers out of the air and that's what we'll use as metrics, right?
Well, it's really about the value realization. What's important to the organization, and what, as you're looking at technology, which we obviously work a lot with, what technology would be in service to that priority? What do you already have that actually can be connected to do, or what do you need? So yeah. I think there's not a one size fits all.
Yeah.
Unfortunately.
Good. I agree. And since you called him out already, let's go ahead and ask Lance. You've certainly got thoughts on this. I'm dying to hear what you've got to say.
No, a couple of points. Jen said it beautifully on making sure when you look at the end-to-end process, everybody has to understand where they impact the customer. And that's the key, is whether you are customer facing or not customer facing, it's important to make that connective tissue that people need to understand how they do impact that customer or employee experience. And I love when she brought in the employee, because it really is that human element. And I think in answering a little bit of the question is, it's important to look at unsolicited feedback versus solicited feedback. We send out questionnaires, we send out, here, fill out this survey, and et cetera. I think there are more. We have really made a big, huge movement into unsolicited feedback using speech and text analytics. So we understand sentiment. And it really is understanding, if you understand how your customer is going to use your product and services, solving their problem, and then overlapping that with unsolicited feedback to really see where the pain points are. Where is their sentiment? Is it positive in one area, negative in another? You should be able to mine that through unsolicited feedback.
Yeah, it's a huge mistake, isn't it, Lance, to rely simply on surveys when you're trying to assess the voice of the customer and look for those opportunities for improvement, right?
Yep.
Yeah. All right, Aaron, let's hear your thoughts on this. Maybe you have some reflections from Nationwide as well.
Yeah, so we have recently completed work with an external company to help us really define that North Star and help us think through that strategy. And as an HR professional, I don't usually get invited to those conversations, and I was in those meetings, and I thought it was great for the reasons we've talked about. In that, I don't talk to customers on a day-to-day basis, obviously, and so I loved being a part of that. As a customer of Nationwide, I was able to bring that perspective, but also be able to bring the perspective of somebody who sits in a support function. So I love when we look at it from a holistic perspective. On the metrics part, I think it's so important to look at a whole breadth of metrics. We're constantly looking at different industry best practices and consumer engagement metrics. We're looking at what's going on from a chatter perspective on Facebook and different things on the internet that I'm sure I don't even understand. We were introducing a new tool in the organization that allows us to capture feedback directly from our customers. We actually implemented a new tool where we can have associates identify different things that they've identified as problems that are happening with the customer experience, and they can bring that forward and bring it to light. So, I mean, I think it's really just about kind of collecting the whole to really understand that full picture, and then we can actually do something about that and really understand what's going on in the experience of our customers.
Yeah, you bet. It's so important, isn't it, Aaron, to make sure that the entire organization is actually involved rather than just saying CX is everybody's responsibility. It's like, well, what does that mean to me, right? You've got to be able to make it real in the work that people are doing. And as Jen and Lance were both saying, it has to be people, everybody, including the people who may not be directly customer facing, so they can answer the question that they inevitably have. Well, how does that impact me? And what am I even supposed to do with that, right? Yeah. All right. So, Doug, moving to you, wonder your thoughts on that. But I also know that at Thomson Reuters, you've got a really inspiring transformation story when it comes to CX, and I'd like to hear your thoughts on that and about what that cultural shift was, and maybe tie it in with this discussion of the holistic approach.
Well, look, if I can try to sort of package an 18-month journey into 2 minutes. I love telling the story about what we've done at Thomson Reuters. And if I can take it back just quickly, just a few years ago, that was really the beginning of our cultural shift in Thomson Reuters. We had been at a place where we were starting to experience a decline in customer satisfaction a few years back after experiencing years of really solid scores. The developing customer sentiment at that time was, boy, it's becoming really hard to do business with Thomson Reuters. You have become so complex. At that time, our net promoter score, we were on the plus side of 0, but really, frankly, nothing to write home about. We were operating for years on aging platforms. We were in a situation where we only had funding to keep the lights on. The technology piece was stalled, frankly. And the mindset, shame on us, but the mindset has sort of developed where if customer issues surfaced, our excuse was, hey, we don't have the technology, we don't have the capability, the improvement is only going to go so far because we're lacking. Well, in the middle of that, we hired a new CEO, and this new CEO was the most I used customer obsessed earlier, the most customer obsessed leader I have ever worked with. And our new leader spent the first few months in the trenches with our support teams, our sales teams, our product teams, every team. I'm not sure he knew where his office was. And he told his executives to do the same. Get out from your internal work and your focus, and really increase the time you're spending on customer engagement, customer-facing time, employee-facing time. And what happened was customer panels, employee listening sessions, that just became the norm. Back to DNA, it just started to be the DNA of our organization. And as part of our efforts to make sure that every employee was engaged and really engaged around improving our organization, we introduced a very simple symbol of the customer. We put an orange chair in every single Thomson Reuters building, in every meeting room that we had, in every common space. And that was a reminder to all of us to really keep the customer at the center of every decision, every discussion that we were having. And I'll jump ahead to 18 months later. Without tools or technology investment at that time, and I'll talk more about where we're going later, hopefully. But without that, just with our employees, we experienced a 34-point improvement in net promoter score over 18 months. And we attribute that success squarely to cultural change and employee engagement.
Yeah, a lot of folks will say, Doug, won't they, that you have to take care of your employees if you're going to take care of your customers, EX before CX. And I think what that story shows is that not only is that a functional and an operational truism, which is to say that great employee experience has to be in place before you can start to build and make things specifically for CX, but that even just improving that EX helps in and of itself, even before, say, you start promoting programs and doing things explicitly for that CX, right?
I mean, look, just quickly, it was the foundation that we had to create. We had to first of all discover and understand that employee experience is what gets you to a great customer experience. Yeah. And frankly, we were blind to that for a long time.
Yeah.
And so that was absolutely key. The cultural shift was absolutely key before some of the next work that we have engaged in.
Yeah. You bet. Jen, I saw you nodding along there. I mean, this really talks to that holistic approach that you've gotten, that you're supporting there at IBM for your clients, right?
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. I think as you think about even this year, it's the things that we have done, from helping school systems and teachers to helping businesses be able to serve their customers in a way that in a remote environment. It's technology has sat at the heart of a lot of that. But if you think about what you just said, it's people. So if we start first with my example, the teachers and making sure they are enabled to help their students, right? So those things are all there. But we've had to get super creative this year in how we're engaging. And really, I think the headline for me has been, it's about speed, right? Because we just haven't had the luxury of just the current situation. So I think for us, it's been a really great time for us to, I mean, it's been a tough time, but also we've been able to really help with that speed element for organizations that really, they needed that kind of support, which is really the most important.
Yeah, I agree. And I think
BC, can I
yeah,
jump
no,
in?
Lance,
And,
you're chomping at the bit here. Go ahead.
no, well, I think it's interesting that I 150% agree with, what everybody is saying and the importance of it. And I couldn't be remiss without saying, it's not only internal, but it is external. Many of us have partners that we outsource, or we have third parties. And if we don't bring them into the experience, if we don't expect them to be part of, the customer experience, the centricity that we're talking about, what we're doing will only go so far and will fail the customer. So it's even more important in circling back when Jen talks about, the human element and the people. It is also the people that do your work on behalf of you. And you need to make sure, even more so, that they believe in the mission, that they believe in the experience that you're trying to give.
Yeah, you're creating, aren't you, Lance, an entire ecosystem? Sorry, Jen, go ahead. Yeah.
Yeah, I was going to completely agree with Lance. Your external teams and partners are so critical as a part of that, because they can help you fill capability gaps. They obviously can help in augmenting skills and new offerings and for the business, or new business models and platforms. But really, they're champions of your business, so they need to be part of the conversation, especially as we kind of are talking about this year. But really, most importantly, that ecosystem, connecting your ecosystem partners and suppliers, et cetera, into this mission. It's a pretty obvious miss if we're not doing that, because they can help really push what you're looking to do as an organization, and they're invested in your success as well. So I completely agree.
Yeah, and what a missed opportunity to keep them at arm's length rather than bringing them in as part of that combined effort, right?
Yeah, and if I could quickly as well, I mean, that also speaks to our experience in Thomson Reuters. Look, we have functions over the last couple of years that have moved and shifted around, and people are doing work in different places. Some of that is in different Thomson Reuters centers around the world, and some of it is done externally. And concurrently, as we're trying to really push our scores higher and our customer engagement higher, that has absolutely been a critical piece to make sure that all of our partners, all of our teams around the world who act on behalf of our customers and us are absolutely rowing in the same direction.
Yeah, great. Let's, Aaron, I'd like to bring you in here because I know at Nationwide you have also a pretty impactful story about, how that EX, those efforts at evolving that employee engagement turned into CX impact as well, right?
Yeah. So at our core, we're a protection company, and our mission, I think, says it all. So our mission is to protect people, businesses, and futures with extraordinary care. Our culture could not be more caring. It's the heart of our organization. And, having these caring associates shows up every single day in how we treat each other, how we treat our customers, and how we treat our communities. And it gets back to that DNA. We protect each other with care. And so as we're developing programs, processes, we make sure that they're evolving to meet the needs of our associates and our customers ultimately. So we'll follow, when we're developing culture programs, for example, we'll follow 3 different guiding principles. One, make sure they're aligned. So we try to weave them into the fabric of things that we're doing. And I'll give you an example of that. We make them accessible so that whether you're somebody who's talking to a customer every single day, or you're somebody like me who doesn't, or who supports them, you know, you've got a place in the program. And we make it simple and sticky to create traction and make it sustainable in the organization. So a couple of examples. First is, we know associates who are engaged create those better results for customers. And so to help associates see that connection between their own engagement and our customers' engagement, we took the framework of our engagement survey that we've done for decade plus and translated that into a culture survey, where we were measuring our own internal perceptions of our customers, how well we were doing the things that we know impact the customer experience. So things like, are we making decisions with our customers in mind? Do we make it easy for our customers to do business with us? And are we held accountable for creating a quality customer experience? And so by measuring those sorts of things in this framework, we allowed leaders and teams to have ongoing conversations and be able to talk about, gave them a platform to be able to talk about ways they could continuously improve. Another thing we did, we call it mission moments that matter. And that's really how, how we tell our own stories about the amazing work that's happening on behalf of our customers. And, this is a concept that really was a simple way for us to be able to share the stories. We share them internally. We share them with our board of directors. We actually have a performance objective that is requires all of our associates to share a couple stories a year with each other, just to get into the routine of kind of defining what does that extraordinary care look like, and really help make that strong connection between the work that we do here matters for our customers out there. So it's really been a very exciting journey to see our caring culture come to life for associates and our customers and our communities.
Yeah, Aaron, it sounds like what you're doing there is you're trying to make real that approach and that attempt, right, to draw that line between what I can do and what the customer's experience is going to be. Great idea about infusing the pulse surveys and the employee engagement surveys with the actual impact that they feel that they can have on the customers, right? The way I approach building out a customer-centric culture includes not just enablement, but also empowerment, right? And so you have to ask the people who are or who are representing your brand to your customers, hey, are we actually giving you what you need in order to make that happen, right? And you have to be humble and willing to hear back whether or not they do feel supported, right?
And they tell us, that's for sure.
That's great. Well, that's a great environment you built then, Aaron, to your credit, to make your employees and your team members feel welcome to offer that feedback. Want to shift real quickly here because Jim brings up a great point in the Q&A box here, and invite everyone to ask their questions through that as well. He's talking about the customers being in control of engagement, and actually that reminds me of something that I just posted online the other day from my friend Annette Franz, who writes in CX, and I'm sure a lot of the folks on the panel, a lot of the folks attending know who she is, and she was talking about shifting from just letting the customer decide, the customer's in charge, customers can control, customer runs, is to instead moving towards a collaborative, let's work with our customer, help decide together how we can best serve them. So I kind of want to take Jim's question and tilt it just a little bit in that direction and kind of go around the horn. Aaron, let's start with you then on this one. What are your thoughts on that when it comes to moving to a collaborative, interaction with your customers when it comes to helping them and serving them?
I think it's obviously critical. And the more that you can bring their voice into conversations, the more that we can help our associates know our customers, is critical. And ours is a pretty complicated business. It's complicated in how we distribute it. The products are very complicated, and so we've done a lot of work just to make sure that our associates are understanding who our customers are, so that they can really be empathetic and help to design those products and the experiences that are really going to meet their needs.
Yeah, you bet. And, Aaron, I'm having an issue with one of my insurance carriers right now, so I can't be more sympathetic to that because, and Lance, I see you nodding along, and I want to give your industry a little bit of a hard time as well, too, because y'all are working in industries that are complicated for those of us who are customers of yours. I don't know the things about the regulation and this or that in insurance and in finance and so forth, MasterCard. Tell us about how you, Lance, at MasterCard can integrate and work collaboratively with your customers, and then also how do you encourage that culturally within your organization as well?
No, great question, and you're right. Whether it's finance industry, whether it's technology, whether it's healthcare, if you're heavily regulated, you have a complex business model, and I think it gets back to really getting everybody to understand at the end of the day, whether you are simple or whether you're complex, small company or large company, you're solving a problem for a customer. You're basically solving a need, servicing a need. It's just not, oh, you're a nice person, we're just going to do business with you. There's a reason they're doing business with you. You need to dissect that. You need to understand what are all the touch points that goes on, whether it's regulation, whether it is their need or certain things that you can do. It's important to be collaborative. It's important to understand, with the customers, what their needs are, how you're solving it. It's important to make sure that you just don't sit on the back end of a regulator but be on the front end working with them to understand what are they trying to solve for, because whether you're a regulator and you're imposing regulations, they're solving a problem as well. So the more that you can understand what they're trying to solve for, you can then align it with how you're solving the problem. And at the end of the day, everybody wants to take care of the customer. And that's really, truly the end point.
Yeah, Lance, I think that's such a healthy approach to it because it's so easy for heavily regulated industries to say, hey, we can't do anything. Our hands are tied. This is where it is. But isn't it the service provider, the company that stands above the rest, that it's able to say, yeah, there's this ridiculous regulation, but here's how we're going to make it easier for you to navigate. And we recognize it as our responsibility to make your doing work in this sphere easier, right?
We're sitting side by side with the regulators. We're sitting side by side with our customers. And, we're taking an education, we're giving an education, and that's how we're actually making it work.
Yeah. Now, Doug, you were actually talking about this sort of thing, not necessarily with regulation, but the idea of, in your story earlier, you were talking about how it was the customers saying, hey, we're unhappy. And you used that as an opportunity to improve your things too. You want to expand on that a little bit because that's about that collaborative experience rather than just saying, well, customer's the boss and the customer's in charge and customer's always right. It's like, no, let's work together and find a way to solve your issues, right?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, our journey really is, as I described earlier, that was part one, chapter one. And, when I think about chapter two, it was, we had taken our improvement as far as we really thought we could take it, without the right investment in the right technologies. We had many, many meetings with many customers who are our longtime customers. Most Thomson Reuters customers have been customers for quite some time. And, through that collaboration, they were telling us what we were doing better, which reinforced the work we did. But they're also saying there are still things that we need to do. We need products that are different. We need services that are different. And through the course of that collaboration, we really engaged our customers more effectively than we have done in years in helping to define what are the technologies, the digital solutions that you're looking for to back to what we talked about earlier, to make it easier to do business with Thomson Reuters, to make sure that number one, our customers know what solutions and services we can offer to help them be successful in their business, and then to make it super easy for them to get those solutions in place. One of the things I'd like to talk about just briefly is sort of that next phase into the technology development of our services. And we, after that 34-point improvement in Net Promoter Score, we looked at it and we said, number one, it is showing us that type of improvement is really helping our sales, our retention in particular, and our customer satisfaction as well. And so we funded a 12-month technology project. We changed every front and back end system that existed in our organization. And over the course of that, we also took our customer feedback from sessions with them to define and design work, self-service tools, digital capabilities. But there's also one thing I want to throw in and not sort of miss today in today's session is about the technology piece and thinking ahead, not just for your customers, which I've talked about, but what our employees were telling us that they needed. And pre-COVID, our employees were telling us we need better tools. We issued laptops to every employee worldwide, no matter what their role was. They told us that we needed to have flexibility to work in the office or work from home because of work-life balance and other things. We equipped everybody in the organization to be able to work from home. And as part of that, we offered more flex work options. And when we think back now, pre-COVID, to that work that we did on the basis of our employees telling us what we needed to do, when COVID hit, we were ready. Our employees, the transition was seamless for our customers, our employees. And I think that really taught our organization that when we listen to our customers, we're going to build better solutions. When we listen to our employees, we're going to have better tools that they can use to service our customers. So that collaboration piece has been part of our success for sure.
Yeah, Doug, and you're highlighting that really inspirational story about taking care of your employees. Even before all of this happened, you were already setting your place culturally to be able to make the moves that were necessary. And Jen, I definitely want to bring you in here because I think this tees up in a great way the work that you do for your clients in a technological perspective, right? Because really it's about enabling your clients, IBM's clients, to be able to take advantage, not just of the technology, but to use that kind of as we've been talking this entire hour so far, to integrate and bring about that holistic approach, right? Tell us a little bit about that and how you're able to help your clients in that way.
Yeah, I think it's actually great. It's funny how this questions all come together here, because some of the things that have been said prior, leveraging technology is an enabler, obviously used by people and customers. Know me, understand me, talk to me like me. But ultimately, we have to be able to serve that need. And I love how Aaron talked about being able to pipe in and connect in customer NPS, like how the feedback from the customer, it's so critical in one, being able to serve the customer better, but also it helps the employee. So I think what we see a lot now is not just evolution of, I'll call customer digital technologies, but also how are we connecting in NPS? How are we connecting in the whole customer journey? So it is actually, it's spanning that whole relationship in terms of customer engagement and customer experience and the evolution of that. So what we work with clients on is obviously they've got a business challenge, and then we always sort of flip it on its head and say, okay, let's talk about how your employees are how this is going to be more effective and efficient for your employees. What do the employees need? So we look at it through both lenses. And I think by doing that, in some of the comments that have been made, we're able to take analytics and sentiment and what's being said by customers and weave that into better continuing to evolve the experience. So leveraging technology to continue to be smarter and understand how to better serve, but also what are additional needs for the customer, and how do we need to develop and continue to evolve our product set. And all of us are in organizations that are not, they evolve, right? So being able to take that and leverage it into helping organizations be smarter, faster. I could give you an example of in COVID working with a big auto company, and you would not think that people are driving a lot, but in any case, helping them to have an online booking tool and to be able to have more capabilities in servicing their cars, and also what else they need from that manufacturer to make sure that their car is running how they want it to run, and they're getting the appointments that they need to have, and they're getting questions answered. So I see a lot today around the next evolution also of the customer care center and being smarter about serving customers, whether it's site or it's an actual call. So we see a lot of that work coming together, and then understanding the feedback loop into that. How did we do, and how are we connecting that customer feedback into getting better and smarter as an organization to serve our customers, and also the employees being more effective and efficient. I was on the phone with a client who said, you guys have helped us with and their major grocer, you guys have helped us with our online and web capabilities, and really modernizing those. They're in a situation where they need to reduce their call center time, and they need to have more information for their call agents, because it was taking them 7 to 8 minutes to get through some of these calls. So we are helping them be able to connect the dots, as we were talking at the outset, of the information to better enable their call center agents to serve their customers. So all of this is really just, it's so interconnected. And these are the kinds of problems that we wake up every day to help our clients solve.
Yeah, and isn't it interesting, Jen, that you bring up the point about the grocer, as well as the car repair company. There's a lot that's gone on, and this is just a recurring theme. I've been talking about it on Reuters Events webinars for the last year, about how suddenly technology has solved problems that we didn't even know existed. But if you think about it, they existed all along. The example I use is that commercial where they have all the medical professionals on some sort of Zoom or Teams call or whatever, and they're just astonished that they can do these sorts of medical things remotely on a team call. And it's like, well, a lot of us have been doing that all along, but there were things that were impossible allegedly before, that now the only way to do it is through technology because of what's been going on, right? I want to move. Yeah, I want to move to Lance here, because I know, Lance, there's this really interesting thing that you and I were talking about last week, in fact, about how there's a corollary to that, where COVID changed everything, and now we're using technology in different brilliant ways to be more customer centric. But you've got an interesting spin on this, and I think you got a great point here, is that I think a lot of people are using COVID as an excuse. Tell us your thoughts on that, and let's go around the room as well with that one.
So yeah, I mean, it's funny. I'll bet you everyone that's listening to this call, panelists, the peers here, would have an experience where you're trying to engage somebody and they said, it's going to take us a couple days to get back to you. Or, they're using an excuse saying, well, because of COVID, your delivery is not happening, because of COVID this, because of COVID that. And I'm finding it's more of an excuse to provide bad customer service, quite honestly. I mean, they're using it as an excuse. But at the end of the day, it really is the companies that are recognizing, that this is an opportunity. This is a way for companies to really take care of the customer, that's going to win it for loyalty. Now, what I did mention to you was something that really disturbed me, and it really set it just because everything that we do using technology, using our people, all have a cause and effect. There's a cause and effect relationship. There is ramifications for each decision that you make. And I won't name the company, but I will say you probably have seen it in the news, where recently there was a young man who committed suicide over the fact that he was significantly in debt. And what happened was finding out that this person tried many times to call the company, get the company, trying to figure out, is this right or wrong? And it actually was a mistake, but could not get through. There was no way to, from reports, there was no way for him to contact service. And so that just resonated to me. And then it kind of then brought all the experiences together to say, those are the ones that are saying because of COVID. I know that companies are in a different, whether you're bringing people in to do whatever for you, whether you're in production, whether you're in call centers, et cetera. But it's still no excuse to communicate and have a way for people to reach you in the customer. So I think a lot of people are using that for as an excuse. And if you are, you don't realize the impact it's making. the
Yeah, and
negative.
that's certainly obviously an extreme case, but I think that, to your point earlier, is something that we can all share, that we've had this experience where I'm ordering a lot more online now, so I'm more exposed to things being delivered to me anyway. But at the same time, what I'm also getting is a lot more, well, whoever the carrier is having a problem keeping up with what's going on because there's so much volume, or we're experiencing higher call volumes. Do you love that when the IVR has this? We're currently experiencing higher than usual call volumes. I call back a year later, it's the exact same voice with the exact same recording. But Doug, let's bring you into this as well. What are your thoughts on that, on brands and people using COVID and all this, not just as an opportunity to better CX, but maybe they're hiding behind it a little bit as well?
Yeah, there's a couple of things that stand out for me. And, one of the things, at least from our customers that I'm more familiar with, is, pre-COVID, our customers were looking at what we can do with them in a collaborative way, and what our products and services will help them, solve problems and go about their business. But to some degree, we didn't have COVID and we weren't restricted in how we do work now, or how it has changed. Some of the shift to more digital solutions, as moving from legacy solutions to digital, was sort of not stalled, but there was almost a hesitation on the part of some firms to invest or make that decision. Well, COVID, in a good way, has really allowed us to work with customers in a more meaningful way and say, look, let's help you be as effective and even more effective going forward in this new reality than you were before. That's the opportunity.
Yeah.
But
yeah,
I also, back to what Lance was talking about. I think as well, when I look forward in some of the next initiatives for us, and look, let's face it, a lot of that is going to be a move to digital, partly driven by improving the customer experience, partly driven by, there's a cost structure that can be optimized and improved in regards to how we deliver support. But what Lance touched on is absolutely critical for us, is that no matter what we deploy in the way of digital solutions, our customers have to be able to get in touch with us. They have to be able to engage with the people who have information that machines may not. And as we go forward into the digital roadmap, how we make ourselves available on the selling side and the support side is going to be more critical, I think, than ever.
Yeah. And I guess, Doug, it's that concentration again on the problem to be solved, right? If you're listening to your customers, if you're actually engaging with them, then it's not just, oh, well, we've got an FAQ page, you'll be fine, right? You can actually make that engagement. Jen, let's bring you in here as well. What are your thoughts on this?
Yeah, I actually think it's absolutely critical, and both what Lance said and Doug just said. We actually are spending a fair amount of time. I mean, think about kids learning from home, right? So what are the support mechanisms and active support? So I don't think it can be, here's your FAQ, or here's just wait forever in the call center to get your phone call answered. What are the applications that we can help to enable that, and how can we stand it up, create the support portals and capabilities so that digital or your technology investments are in service to that, as well as the people answering the phone. So I think we've seen a lot more of that this year, because just the dynamic of people are at home and they need those mechanisms and they need that support. So that is absolutely critical. And we've seen a lot more, I'll call it support portals, I guess is a good way to say it, but really the ability to be able to enable that in a very interactive way.
Yeah, it's technology for its own sake, or is it technology to actually do something and connect with your customers, right? Aaron, go ahead. I'm sorry, Jen.
Yeah, I was going to say, and it's Aaron would say this, and I think Aaron should comment on this, but it is in service to the vision and to the mission of the organization, and everything that Aaron had talked about. I think that technology is in service. It's in service to the employees and the customers, but really to bring that mission to life.
Yeah, Aaron, go ahead there. Yeah.
Yeah, so we talk about being people connected and technology enabled. And so if you think about our business, I mean, we are there when people need us the most, right? And so, unfortunately, COVID is is a crisis. And we work really well in crisis. We help people when their house burns down. We help people when a loved one has passed away or there's been a car accident, or during a financial hardship and they need money from their 401k. So we know how to handle those difficult situations. So we want to help people. We want to be available from a technology perspective when that's how they want to interact with us. But when you want to talk to somebody, we're going to be there for you. And I think I just think about how we handled the COVID crisis and getting all of our folks home within a couple of days, and service levels weren't interrupted, and people just are resilient, and because they care about our customers, and that's just the bottom line. And again, it is the fabric, it is part of our DNA of who we are as a company. So
Yeah, and
I think it all gets back to that.
Yeah, to go back to the point that you were making earlier, it's based on having had that culture already in place, made it easier, right?
Yeah.
So I have declared a New Year's resolution, and that is that for a change, I will be ending these events on time. We always roll over, but for Aaron and Scott and all the folks at Reuters Events, it is my intention to make 2021 the year we end these on time. And so with that, I want to kind of wrap this up with an exit question that's new for this year. And I want to put that old year in the rear view mirror so far. So rather than, hey, what's coming up for 2021? I'm going to go around the horn. I'm going to ask all the members of the panel. Thanks to all of you for joining us. Starting with Aaron, what do you think is ahead for 2022?
I am hopeful, and I'm hopeful that we're able to continue and even accelerate finding solutions faster, adapting faster, and speed to market faster because of the things we've learned this year and in 2020.
Yep. Absolutely. It's about embracing that change, right? I love it. Aaron, thanks, Vice President of Organizational Effectiveness for Nationwide. Doug Chalk is the Senior Director, Global Legal Premier Support for the US, UK, Canada, and Philippines. I'm reading that just so you know, for Thomson Reuters. Doug, what's your thought? What's coming up, not in 2021, but in 2022?
Hey, in 2022, like if I could wave the magic wand and say, this is where we're going to be, we are going to have the customer experience just totally reimagined by that time. We are going to use the experiences of this COVID pandemic and all that's meant for us and all the good things that we did pre-COVID. And we are going to have a customer experience that really strips out the pain any customers feel when they do business with us. And our employees are going to be supercharged, and they are going to be really feeling like there is a place for them, our employees, in the new world, in our digital roadmap.
Awesome. And it's going to take that dedication from a cultural perspective, Doug, isn't it, to make
Absolutely.
that happen? Thanks. All right. Lance Gruner, Executive Vice President, Global Customer Care, MasterCard. So fast forward 2022, there's no more virus. Everybody's got the shots. We all have our superpowers from whatever the vaccination gives us. What do you see?
I think what I see is I'm very excited about the ability the technology available, the people that are available, the insights available to really deliver an amazing customer experience. We could not get there without the crisis because people's minds have shifted and customers have shifted. They've adopted things quicker. So I'm really stoked about when this all, people are going to go wild. And I think harnessing that, using what we have available and what we can to get in the mind of our customer, it's going to be amazing.
Awesome. Yeah. And you're leveraging that technology to get those insights the whole time, all along. Thanks a lot so much, Lance. Jen, not Jennifer, but Jen Quinlan from IBM, Managing Partner, Enterprise Strategy and Interactive Experiences for the Americas. Thanks so much for sponsoring. What are your thoughts on what's coming up after this is all said and done?
Well, I think we're still evolving the next generation of customer experience and connecting the dots. But what I'm really looking forward to is helping to lead and support the businesses and people getting back to work and back to normal. So whether it's your digital health paths or trying to be able to get out in the world and find our new normal, I'm really looking forward to taking that next step with our customers and our and the rest of the world to get back to our new normal. So
yeah, and it's going to take those partnerships. It's going to take folks like IBM helping us out with those technological solutions as well. Awesome. Thanks. Well, thanks, Jen, Lance, Doug, and Aaron. Thanks to everybody for attending. Aaron, thank you. And thanks, Scott, who is missing right now. But thanks for your support. I'll pass it on back to you.
Thank you very much. I really enjoyed that panel. I think it was nice to hear, well, start with some really fresh anecdotes and some experiences. There's so many kind of cutting edge case studies there of things that people are just working on. So it's really great to hear these new strategies. I also thought it was really interesting to hear these kind of overall mindset, kind of more holistic strategies, but then link back to quite specific examples of how you're actually delivering that to your customers. So really great. I'm looking forward to listening to it back as well. So I just want to say a big thank you to Nicholas for moderating, and again to our panel today, Lance, Jen, Doug, and Aaron for joining us. If you do have any, so there was plenty of questions coming in. If we didn't have time to get to yours today, please do follow up, and we might pass on to one of the panel today. Coming up, we've got plenty more webinars in lined up. There's one coming up soon on messaging that I'm sure you'll hear more about. Scott and the team have also been working behind the scenes on the upcoming Customer Service and Experience Summit as well. So keep an eye on your inboxes to hear more about that too. But yeah, one last big thank you to Nicholas for moderating today on our panel, and hope to catch you again on the next one soon.